Welcome to 4.0 to Pro, the pickleball podcast that focuses on a single shot, tip, or strategy to improve your pickleball game with every single pocket-sized episode. Our goal is to make you better on the court every time you hear our voices.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of 4.0 to Pro, your pocket-sized pickleball podcast. We teach you a single shot or strategy every single episode. I'm Michael O'Neill, here in sunny Long Beach, California, joined by one Mircea there in sunny Boca Raton, Florida. What's up, dude?
How are you doing, my friend?
Well, I had a very rough outing on the pickleball court yesterday, but, I tried to do your thing where it was like, it's a nice day, and I'm playing pickleball, but that didn't even work. So I left the courts going, yeah, I'm good with pickleball for today. I'm retiring from pickleball for today.
Hey, my brother, we've all had those days, all of us.
Ugh. So we just got back from an incredible camp in Carrollton, Texas at Pickler Universe, which was unbelievable. And we should spend a little bit of time, maybe not this show, because I think we need to get into our lobs. But I do want to talk a little bit about the facility and how great it was, et cetera, et cetera. But you and I chatted a bit about the camp and the potential targets of future camps.
Yes.
And I know you've been approached by a number of people. Even though the show is 4.0 to Pro, we got a lot of people that are in that 3.0 plus range that listen to this show.
Yes, sir.
And hopefully we give them huge advantages on the court because they will be in the proper position or at least know what they need to work on when they drill, et cetera, et cetera. But we kicked around a couple of ideas for future camps. I would like you to weigh in on this right now, which is A, we can talk about doing a lower level, like 3.0 to 4.0 type camp. B, a doubles partners camp where an entire doubles team comes with us for the camp. And C, a mixed doubles camp.
I'm a huge fan of all those options. While it is technically 4.0 to Pro, I feel the things we discuss are really applicable amongst so many levels. Sure, there are some specific shots or skills that are a little bit higher level. Maybe some of the patterns we discussed are a little bit higher level. But so many of the basic strategies, the basics of footwork, basics of court positioning, so many of those things are applicable amongst all these levels. So I think a 3.0 to 4.0 or just a 3.0 plus camp. The one challenge is that we really emphasize a lot of strategy and patterns and court positioning and setting up points and how to set up a pattern. And so these are things that you have to enact and go through. One of our favorite things as part of the camps is playing with the other people and watching the other people play and talk about how things develop over the course of a point, and we dissect the point, and that kind of sets us apart a little bit. And the feedback that we've gotten is that that's also probably the best aspect of the camp from the campers. So one of the challenges is stratifying people into the different levels, and I think it would be helpful to do a 3.0 to 4.0 camp. Also, I love the partner things. We've discussed this so many times, and it's becoming more and more evident to me that even in the last couple of days, you and I have both had different experiences, different yet similar experiences, where if your partner is not doing what you think they will be doing or has really no intention of setting up points that make sense, it's very difficult to play and win when you have players of relatively equal abilities.
You and I had that same exact experience where I was totally hamstrung. As I expressed to you, I don't know there's another sport that lowest common denominator as your partner, if you're not syncing well and moving well and at least on board with let's try this thing, man, you can just go down in flames really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to play with a lot of open pro players down here. There's so many down here. I can't compete with their skill level, but where I feel I can gain somewhat of an advantage is hit the ball in the right spot and try to set up my partner. And so I'm able to hang in there in games and win a lot of rec games because of the patterns that we set up and that we discuss. And if you're not doing that with your partner, then when you're not, I mean, it's really tough to compete, especially in tournaments and when you start to get a little bit higher level.
Where things can get challenging, I think, for 3.0 to 4.0 players is that if we're returning and I'm the person up front and they're returning the ball and I say, return to XYZ, return middle or return to this guy, and they don't physically have the capability of doing that yet, meaning they're lucky to get the ball over, or they'd love to get a ball deep. Like deep is more important than anything for them. It's tougher to construct points that way, not knowing where the ball's going to end up. Or if we say dink middle, and then go outside or whatever, that may not be something that they have in their arsenal yet. So I think what we would do for a camp like that is let's give them the basics of strategic play. And you're very fortunate, Mircea, that the higher up you go up the food chain, typically the less that needs to be discussed from a basics standpoint. Someone's going to probably be covering middle, etc. Once that's sorted out and you start getting into actual strategic play, that's where the stuff needs to go a little more high level and have those conversations. But at the lower level, most people don't play with the same partner. They play rec play. And if the only thing you can do is say, hey, let's hit the ball to the guy who's coming up on return, that can be a win.
Exactly. You don't need to have a 10-minute conversation. You can talk to each other very succinctly and briefly between points to set up some things. But we'd love to get some feedback from everyone. So if everyone can reach out, and if you'd be interested in a partner camp, I love that idea. It's not being done. And also a mixed camp, which obviously is a subcategory of the partner camp. If you have a mixed partner that you want to get better with, and if you have a regular partner you have to get better with, gender or mixed, we would love to get some feedback regarding some potential interest in that kind of camp.
Agreed. So if you guys live somewhere where you think you can put a number of teams together, our requirements are typically 1 court on Thursday and then 4 to 6 courts on Friday and Saturday during the day, like 9 to 5. So very often we're finding that some of these indoor places aren't very busy during the week, 9 to 5. It's just not something they have. Saturday might be a little different. And or when winter comes along, some of the indoor places are going to be definitely busier than they are right now. So if that's you, you can go to picklehelp.com. You can hit either of us. He is Brains Doc on Instagram. I am Solo Hour, SOLOHOUR. And just reach out. Let us know you're interested. I'll get you on the list. And if we get enough people to be interested in this, then I think we can probably move the needle for a lot of really great teams. Mircea, let's talk lobs. Lobs, I thought were going to trend in like 2021. I was like, this is going to be the year of the lob. And then it was a little, but not really. But I feel like lobs have come into their own in 2025. We're seeing at the highest level. It's not just people that don't know how to drop, which was the case before. They were just like, I don't really know how to hit a drop, so I'm just going to fire a ball to the sky. And that's going to start this process. We see it a lot from tennis players. What we're seeing now from the Anna Brights of the world are in one match. They'll lob 30 times. And it can be so chaotic and so disruptive to the other team. They have to have something sorted out in terms of like, who's going to handle this, who's going where, how are we going to respond to it, et cetera, et cetera. It can really be an asset on the pickleball court in 2025.
I'm just laughing because I was thinking I should have texted Anna to come be a guest on the show, because I think she'd lobbed like 24.
That would have been cool.
I think she lobbed 24 times in one match. They are definitely a great strategic part of the game. I love playing against lobbers because my overhead is one of my favorite shots. I typically enjoy it when they are not lobbing well. I mentioned to you that I had one match that I played mixed in a Hall of Fame tournament when I think we had it felt like 300 lobs in the match because I was tracking down everything. I don't think I've ever been more tired after a match than that one. But the strategic use of lobs is obviously a thing. With the newer paddles, it's something you can definitely use to take advantage of people getting up to the line and taking balls in the air and trying to flick. And that's one of the ways that you can push them off the line is hit some strategic lobs.
Literally the first point of the first game I played yesterday. I wasn't even warm yet. Like my knees are still hurty. There's blood's not flowing in them yet. And I was on the left side. We got into a dink rally. It went to the person right across from me. And she just looped a lob over my left shoulder, right down the line, right in corner pocket. Like it was a perfect ball. And of course I tried to chase it down, but it was a perfect ball. It didn't matter anyway. But that kind of set the precedent for that match. It's like, oh man, these guys are going to they're going to be really good and they're going to drop really well. And also they're going to create some chaos with lobs. That in particular, that down the line back shoulder, if you've got a lefty righty team, when you're on the outside towards the sidelines, just a little loopy lob right over their opposite arm shoulder is really, really tough because they've got to turn around and make some kind of FTD florist move to try to get the ball with this backwards, no look overhead smash, if they can even get a paddle on it. I really love that one because it's not a super difficult ball to hit when you're dinking. It's easy to hit out, but it's not that hard just to lift it up and over the person right in front of you. So that is one scenario, I think, right out of the gates that you can employ.
The most common scenario where lobs are being used in the 3-0 plus area is defensive lobs and sometimes some offensive lobs from the baseline. That's really where I see it. People tend to have somewhat less mobility. Maybe their footwork isn't quite as good. And so there are a lot of people, and maybe also the overheads aren't that great, so people feel comfortable lobbing. And it's really a simple shot to hit. You just basically kind of hit it up in the air. So people just default with lobs. And I don't think that's a great habit to get into. So let's break it down a little bit more. In terms of a defensive lob, whenever you are really in trouble on the court, you're really way out of position, you want to get back to neutral. So you're down in the point. So the softer you hit it and the more cross court you hit it, and maybe the higher you hit it, the more time you and your partner can get back into the point.
Where are you on the court at that time?
It can be anywhere.
Are you like mid-transition zone or something like that, and you just want to fire it up and give yourself a chance to see what they do, get stable, and get ready for that next ball?
It's usually when you are pushed so far out of position that it's like your only shot. Do you know what I mean? So you are really stretched and you're like almost diving for the ball. Diving is a little bit of a strong word, but you get what I'm saying. When you are so far out of position that you can't comfortably reset, that might be a time to consider lob. Or your partner has already popped it up and you just get a ball crushed and you're still back at the baseline. You might want to pop up a lob. And I love just hitting it as high as I can right towards the center of the court, like literally the center of the pickleball court, because if you have any wind, it's going to blow it out. And you're also scrambling, but you can't really direct it that. So that's a defensive lob.
I'm going to say it's important to notice where the wind direction is, what side of the court you're on. If the wind is blowing towards you, you've got a better chance of keeping the ball in the court versus when you try to loop it over them and the wind's at your back, which can push those lobs quite long sometimes.
Great point. And also, if the wind is blowing on one side, you can feel free to hit the lob into the wind, assuming the wind is going to pull it over and try to get it more center. So that's a really good point. It depends on the elements.
So that would be a defensive lob. You see it a lot with some advanced players on the third shot. People, instead of a third shot drop or a third shot drive, the third shot lob is sort of the redheaded stepchild of thirds. But when someone executes it well, especially on that with the wind against them, man, it can be like such a perfect, surprising shot at a key scenario. And that's typically when I see it deployed. I don't see it all the time, but if it's 8-8 and someone's got it in their back pocket and all of a sudden they hit that third shot lob, it can really disrupt and give them some momentum to finish the game off.
Obviously, a great shot, particularly when your opponent, the one that's non-returning, is not as mobile, or you know that they can't really hurt you with an overhead. So that's one really good scenario to use it. Another time I like to use it is especially in mixed doubles when the male player is on the right and is returning, so you know that they're going to switch. So the male player will return, often in the middle, and I like taking that ball with my forehand. If I'm on the left side, I like to take that ball and hit a topspin lob over the female player that's switching. So the guy is trying to switch over to the left, so he's going away from the ball, and she is going side to side from the left to the right, and so I try to lob over her backhand.
You're going in the space that he's vacating, right?
Correct.
So he's on that right side running diagonally, and you just go right back over him.
Correct. It works best when he returns in the middle. So I have that forehand, and then basically I aim it to the right side, so we'll be over the woman's backhand ideally, so away from him. But obviously you can use that in gender too, as long as you get it over that person's backhand.
The actual scenario of the court dictate. If you're playing against 2 6'5" dudes, you're gonna have a harder time lobbing. But if you're in a tournament or someone's on the smaller side, or they've been shown that they're not great at lobs. I think it's almost like, it reminds me a bit of, very often we'll tell people, if that guy is playing really big middle, right? If you're playing mix, let's say, or you've got somebody playing big middle, sometimes you go outside just to keep him honest, just so he can't just poach in the middle of the court. I think the threat of a lob does something to the psychology of the opponents, where if they know that it's there, they're going to keep an eye out for it. And I've seen, even to some extent, where the person who's close on the return, they won't come all the way up. They'll hang transition zone a little bit just in case they go over their head again. And that usually happens after, like, if you're Anna Bright, after 4 or 5 lobs, and they really got to start looking out for it.
And that's another great point. If the left side dominant player is really poaching a lot of balls in the middle and they're really hugging that line, one way you can get them off the line is hit them a lob behind them, so on their backhand, and that will push them off the line, like you said. It's really good to try that at the beginning of the game, or let's say 2-all or something like that, so it's not too risky of a shot because you're going over the best player, the more dominant player on that left side. We call it in the budget. It's a similar scenario where maybe you say, okay, let's drive down the left side player's line. Let's go down to his backhand. Even if we lose the point, at least we keep him over there a little bit more with a third shot drive or drop over there because he's poaching. He's really controlling that middle.
There's an angle conversation to be had there. So let's say you're on the left, I'm on the right, and we're in a dinking rally, okay? If you get a ball, let's say from their left player to middle, basically. So you can take a forehand where you can scoop it between your legs. You're not stretched out to get a backhand slice dink, but you're able to get it almost like a underhand shot in basketball. You're able to hit that ball. You can lob, especially if you take it out of the air, you can lob from that spot to that back corner behind that person, right? The challenge is there, if they're tall or they have a big, powerful step, they could leap back and it could be right in their wheelhouse. Like you're actually really putting it right in a really good spot. Versus the ball comes to me on the diagonal, right side player to right side player. I've got a forehand now, and now their left side person's right in front of me. I can flip a ball, just like I explained at the beginning of the show, right down the line, which is going to be a much tougher overhead to get, but it's a way tougher shot on me. Like you have way more room for your ball, and I have way less room for mine. Yours is a little more susceptible to actually being gotten if someone's a big athlete or whatever. Mine's a tougher shot. So there's kind of pros and cons depending on the angle you're hitting this lob from.
You want to hit an offensive lob when you are in control of the ball. So if you get a dead dink or a fluffy dink or whatever you want to call it, as opposed to being stretched to one side or another where you're in a lot of trouble, that's a good time to set up a well-disguised lob. And ideally, you've disguised it by hitting, say, multiple dinks or dink volleys with the same type of motion. And a perfect example is a dink volley. So if you hit 2 or 3 dink volleys on either side, say you hit them straight ahead, and you take another ball in the air, like a third ball, you can hit that, just push it up a little bit higher, and you hit a lob. That's really tough to see on the other side when you've just hit 2 or 3 dink volleys. It really helps when your opponents are crowding that line, and it also helps if they have just come up and are leaning in or leaning forward. They're kind of leaning forward, kind of hunt for those balls in the air, and that's when you push them back when they're leaning forward, expecting to try to get a ball in the air to attack you.
It's a shot of attrition as well. The more you hit lobs, the tougher it is for them to get lobs. Let's assume you're not playing with a 22-year-old hyper athlete who can do that all day, but most of us aren't. Most of us are 35 plus that listen to this show. It can wear you down. You get a half a dozen lobs in a game, and not only do you have to scramble, and it's a very powerful, dynamic move. If you hit it in and they're behind the baseline, you're forcing them to hit a drop from 22 feet that's presumably going to have to be pretty good because you guys are very established in waiting for that next ball. And sometimes their partner doesn't come back with them. So I'd love to actually ask you that. When someone lobs your team, do you prefer that both partners go back at the same time? Or does one stay up or stay mid-court just to balance and protect against the potential drop when someone hits that response to the lob?
Yeah, I think we should start by saying who's covering the ball. The optimal scenario is if you're on the right, I'm on the left, and someone lobs you, that you, if you're able to, you hit the overhead.
I go back straight up and I hit the
Or you
overhead.
jump, you got that,
Yeah.
20-inch vertical. I've probably got a
Like
40.
40's more like it, but that's cool.
Oh, I have to, really. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that I sold you out so
Yeah.
short. My bad.
Yeah, have to.
All right. Sorry, bro. So let's say you get that 40-inch vertical and you crush the overhead. That's what we're looking for. So that's
Sure.
the optimal scenario. The second most optimal scenario is I tell you to duck and you just duck and I take the overhead if someone's lobbed over you. The third scenario is someone hits a really good lob over you, and it depends on the lob. If someone hits a really good lob over you and I'm really scrambling to get it at all, I'm going to tell you to go back. I'm going to say back because I'm going to jack up a lob as high as I can to try to allow us to get back into the point. So in that scenario, you would go to the left side and we'd switch. So that would be one scenario. Now, the other scenario is that I'm comfortably able to get the ball and I'll tell you to duck and stay. So I literally say, duck, stay. And one of the people that does this the best on the senior pro circuit is Dave Weinbach. He has an uncanny knack to track down the ball and hit a perfect drop into the kitchen. He will always drop it, and he will almost always tell his partner to stay. And when I'm playing with him, if I'm on the right and he's on the left, I'll just stay up there and I'll duck, make sure, he has plenty of room to hit the ball. What you don't want to do is just stand straight up in the middle of the court and potentially get hit by a ball that your partner's trying to hit. So you got to figure out some way to do that. Now, ideally, you will have discussed this with your partner who's covering the lobs. If someone lobs over me, the first scenario is great if I'm able to jump up and get it. And then the second scenario, since it would be your backhand, would probably me going back and tracking the lob. And the same thing applies.
The diagonal person.
No.
Like the diagonal person you're saying?
No. What I'm saying, if someone lobs over me and I'm on the left side and you're on the right, it's a little tougher for you because it's your backhand side and it's going away from you. I would ideally like to track that down if I can.
So I'm particularly good at that as well. I can burst to the ball where it's going to bounce. And the thing that I think is most important if you guys are trying to field these is you have to do your best to get behind the ball, or at least get your paddle behind the ball. So if a lob bounces, it's generally bad. Can we agree on that? Like, we don't want the ball to bounce if possible.
If possible, yes.
But let's say they hit a great lob, and now it's a foot or 6 inches from the baseline, and you are gunning to get it. What I typically do is I will run and burst, and I'll be on the right side of the ball, and I'm able to get my paddle around and hit a pretty darn good drop from that angle. I haven't explored doing what you do, which is to fire another lob up in the air. But the most important part for everybody listening, you're dealing with a wiffle ball. It doesn't move all that fast. If you've got some semblance of wheels, try to get behind it on the right-hand side of the ball as quickly as humanly possible. And then you're able to at least give yourself a chance to rotate and get a drop or something, hit your ball. What you don't want to do is be on the left-hand side and try to field it with some sort of backhand, because it ain't going to work. And I don't have a tweener. I can't do the running in between my legs ball. I don't have that. I don't possess that ball.
Just to clarify, you mean the ball is on your right side because you want to hit a forehand?
No, I'm on the right side of the ball. So the ball is I'm running on the right side of the ball so that I can sweep around it with my forehand and hit it behind me, basically.
Yeah, I see.
Like I'm still maybe facing the other court, but I'm able to at least get the paddle on it and hit it behind me. If I'm lucky, I'm able to get myself turned around enough to hit a somewhat decent drop. It's something I'm somewhat consistent at for whatever reason. But it's because of wheels. If you don't have wheels, then it bounces and maybe you fire that lob up or something like you do. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Well,
you could go Daniel De La Rosa and turn around and jump and fire a forehand.
Like I said, I only sky that lob when I can't really get to it adequately to hit a good drop or drive.
And all else fails.
And if you hit a drive, you got to remember that if you hit a drive and, the Daniel De La Rosa, like you said, you have to hit it great because the ball is going to come back faster. So one advantage of the drop or the really sky-high lob is that at least you have time for you and your partner to get back in position. So you're giving yourselves more time. And a little tip that I think is really important to think about, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to execute offensive lobs is that they're trying to hit the perfect lob. They're trying to hit that perfect arc, like just over the person's paddle or where they think that they're going to jump. What I really have been trying to do more is hit a higher lob, because even if I don't hit a great lob, it's higher and usually it's a little bit deeper. The person can't hit a great overhead anyway off such a high lob, and then it just drops in. So it increases my margin. It helps my margin. I get the ball to drop right within like a foot or two of the baseline when I hit a higher lob, and the penalty if I don't hit it as well is not as great as if I'm trying to hit a perfect lob.
Where are you on the court when you send those, generally?
Usually I'm in control of the point when we're at the kitchen. Those are the ones that I'm talking about.
Oh, you're all the way up sending a really high lob that way.
Exactly. I mean, when I talk about defensively, I'm usually at the baseline or in the transition zone, and I'm scrambling where I can't hit a comfortable drop or drive. But when I've noticed is that people really like to try to hit those perfect lobs, and what I've done is try to hit a little bit higher, the higher arc of the lobs in the offensive situations when I'm taking the ball in the air or off the bounce comfortably.
One thing I'm seeing a lot on the pro game, somebody will lob and then they'll hang out mid-transition zone. I'm thinking of like, is it at a right? A few of these happened in the pre-wooden paddle tournament, the one that was really, really great. We had all those great matchups. Big lobs, overhead came, but like you said, don't come back with all that much heat. And they're hitting a really ripping drive as the person who threw the lob up. You know what I'm saying? So they hit the overhead, but it ends up bouncing somewhat high, and because it's a pickleball, it's not flying a million miles an hour. And they rip it right back at that person as they're trying to get up into the transition zone. I'm seeing that as a play, like a two-parter that's happening more and more on the pro circuit.
I think the prototypical example on the female side is Hurricane Tyra Black.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
that's
Tyra.
Probably who you're thinking of. Because
not Etta Wright, Tyra Black. Yeah.
From the transition zone, she will really sky some lobs, and her defense is so good, and she's so quick that she can track down the balls, and also her hand speed is great. So she's comfortable hitting a lob from that transition zone because her defense is so good, and she's so confident in her defense. So you have to have really good defense to be able to hit comfortable lobs from the transition zone, which we generally don't recommend.
So we've talked about lobbing from that between your legs basketball position where you're taking a ball out of the air like a dink volley and you're popping it over their head. We've talked about a lot of forehand side. Do you see much, or do you have any version of a backhand offensive lob? Now, I can pull it off with a two-y down that line a little bit, especially against a left-handed player, and I'm playing left side. If I get swung wide and it's a dink that I'm able to get behind, it's a little bit dead, I'm able to tweak my wrist a little bit and flick it over the opposite hand shoulder of that left side player right down my sideline. That's a super tough ball. It's tough to hit. It's a real shot that you have to work on. Like, you can't just be like, cool, I'm going to fire this right now. But do you see that much on the pro circuit with a one-hander or a two-hander or anything like that? Or people doing some offensive lobs with one hand?
Oh, yeah. I definitely see it. Usually when people are taking the ball in the air, I mean, me personally, I have a one-handed backhand, as you well know. And what I know you hate it, but what I like to do is actually hit a topspin offensive lob with my backhand, especially when I have a lefty in front of me. So that means when I'm on the left and there's a lefty in front of me on the right, I will hit a topspin ball over their backhand, targeting that middle of the right side court, ideally going over their backhand, or I will take it in the air and do that. Another time that I like to do that with my backhand is, and I used it several times today, I'll hit a slice dink a little, pulling the left side player out wide. So it'll be from the left side, I'll have backhand slice pulling the left side player out wide. And then I'll reach toward the middle trying to flick. But if the ball is too low, I can volley lob. I'll hit a volley with my backhand, or my forehand for that matter, over the backhand of the right side player that's trying to lean in.
So like a triangle a little bit.
Exactly.
Right? You could set yourself up for a bit of a two-shot combo. Let's say you're in a cross-court dinking rally, outside to outside. Both of you are on the left. You're hitting slice dink to slice dink or topspin, whatever you have. But you're placing it fairly well, and each one of you is getting to the outside of the court. If you bring that player in with a shorter dead dink, well, like we've discussed on the show, not all dead dinks are created equal, but in the middle. So now you've brought them right to the tee. basically at the non-volley zone in the middle of the court, that's a killer time to fire it back over their shoulder into the back corner, like the corner pocket ball.
Exactly. That's another really good play. And let's be honest, is there anything more fun in a rec game than having a great lob and someone barely gets it, and then you hit a little drop shot, and then you run up and they barely get it, and you lob them again? I mean, is there really anything more fun than that?
It's just mean, and it's mean and fun at the same time.
Hey, just because I did it to you like a couple times in Dallas does not mean that I enjoyed it.
You did it to me once, but I got my fair share, dude. I held my own in that few games we played while I was wearing pants and my Adidas street shoes.
Hey, you were great, and that's honestly the most fun aspect of the camp is when we do stuff like that. For those that obviously don't know what we're talking about, we really played one day on the Friday, the last day of the camp. We ended up staying for a little party afterward, and we played with some of the campers that also stayed afterward. And I think we finished at like 10 o'clock. So we were there from 8 o'clock in the morning when we set up until roughly 10 o'clock at night. And I think we maybe took an hour off of playing pickleball during that entire time. And that was
just to have some drinks.
That was really a joy. That was really a joy.
It was great. The first time I've ever played in street clothes before like that.
Real quick, in terms of adjusting to the lobs, you want to be able to recognize them, number one. And one of the things you notice is that someone will drop the shoulder on one side or the other right as they're about to lob. And if someone lobs you, try to remember how that looked right before they hit the ball, because you can start to predict it. So that's one thing. Number two is if someone hits multiple lobs, then obviously they're giving you a signal that that's their shot. So you got to be aware of that. One way to do that is tell your partner, hey, you see when they do this, they're about to lob, and why don't you stay back a few feet if you see that they get this particular ball what they're like to lob with. When you stay back a few feet and you start crushing some of the overheads, then that discourages the opposing player to lob as much as they have.
It's funny you say that, and we'll wrap the show after this, guys, but I ended up on court the other day. It was more of the kind of rec courts where I live, and I just stepped in with a bunch of people. This is a 2-5 to 3-5 group. Maybe there's a 4-0 or 4-2 or something like in that group, but they would be about to hit the ball, and I would just move to where they were going to hit the ball. And of course, when you see that in real life, it looks like someone's just like remote controlling the point. It seems like you're barely moving. And someone said, how do you know where to go? Like, you seemed like you were waiting for the ball every time they hit it. I said, well, it's just paddle recognition. I think it's one of the best lessons you can learn as a 3-0 to 4-0 player is the angle of the paddle and the angle of the swing path. Where is it going to go? Deception starts coming in pickleball at around 4.5 because people get good enough at pattern and swing path recognition. All the shots are telegraphed. When you are in the zone where many of you guys listening to this show, if the only thing you focus on for one single game is the angle of your opponent's paddle, what their swing path of that paddle is, I promise you, the game will slow down significantly for you. And you go, oh, I was already moving to that backhand dink before they hit it. And generally, those people don't have deception built into their game yet. So they're not going to like hold it, and then fire it a different way. If they show you that they can do that, okay, you can adjust to it. But in general, you're pretty safe until like 4 or 5 with just those two things.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And we preach that during the shows and also during the camp. One last thing about lobs, use them judiciously. If they're working, sure, you can keep using them. But if you're in a highly competitive situation, if you're in the finals of a tournament and you've gotten a few good lobs, start to recognize that your opponents might be backing up a little bit off the line, and don't go to the well too often because you are going to get punished if they've adjusted. So let's not be lobbing fools out there.
I saw a dude once who threw a lob up and he just stayed at the non-volley zone. They were mid-transition zone fielding the lobs. They were right there. And he literally just squatted down and held his paddle up and covered his eyeballs. And he put the ball away. They hit it right to his paddle. And I was like, I mean, that's not in the textbook, but that was a really amazing shot you just hit.
Yeah, I have a few funny stories about that. But anyway, let's move on. I think we've covered the lobs.
We've done lobs. Folks, please go out and lob your friends and make them mad at you by doing the lob-drop-lob combo and everything else we discussed on today's show. As always, go have some fun in the pickleball courts. From Mircea, I'm Michael. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to 4.0 to Pro. For more tips, find us on Instagram at 4.0 to Pro. If you have a pickleball question, submit it at picklehelp.com. Now, get out there and dominate. But don't forget to have fun.